Earth lay dying. The once blue planet had become a patchwork of scorched continents and toxic seas. Storms raged across barren landscapes where forests once stood. The air outside was barely breathable, thick with dust and chemicals. Most people lived underground now, in the few habitable zones remaining after decades of environmental collapse. In the underground facility near what was once Seoul, Dr. Jaya Park walked through dim corridors. The lights flickered overhead, power conservation measures in effect even here, in humanity's last great project. She nodded to the few scientists she passed. Everyone looked tired. Everyone had that same hollow look in their eyes. Jaya reached the main control room and pressed her palm against the scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, screens lined the walls, showing the last weather patterns of Earth, the positions of the few remaining satellites, and the status of the transmission array being prepared on the surface. She had not slept properly in 3 days. The weight of their task kept her awake. The Legacy Project was humanity's final testament, their last message to the stars. If Earth died, when Earth died, something of humanity would survive, echoing through space forever. Dr. Park, Engineer Hyun Lee, called from his workstation. The encoding team finished the cultural database an hour ago. Jaya walked to his station, her steps heavy. At 42, she felt twice her age. The project had consumed 5 years of her life, the final desperate effort of a dying species to be remembered. "Show me," she said. Hyun tapped his screen. A massive data visualization appeared before them, billions of data points representing all that humanity had chosen to preserve. Music, art, literature, scientific discoveries, philosophical texts, everything deemed essential to understanding what humans had been. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Hyun said, his voice soft. "Everything we were compressed into a single transmission." Jaya nodded. Hyun was younger than most of the staff, only 30, but he had proven himself brilliant. When the project needed a way to compress centuries of human knowledge into a transmittable format, he had been the one to solve it. "The mathematical encodings?" she asked. "Complete," Hyun said. "We've created something unique, a representation of human consciousness that any sufficiently advanced intelligence should be able to decode." On another screen, lines of complex equations scrolled by. They had created a kind of blueprint of the human mind, a mathematical representation of how humans think, feel, and perceive the world. It was perhaps their most ambitious addition to the message. "The military council made their demands clear," a voice said from the doorway. Jaya turned to see Director Suk Kim entering the room. Suk's face was stern as usual, her gray hair pulled back tightly. "They want the military archives included," Suk continued. "Every war, every weapon, every strategy humans have ever used." Jaya shook her head. "We decided against that. We wanted to show our best selves." "The council overruled us," Suk said flatly. "They say any honest portrait of humanity must include our capacity for violence alongside our achievements." The data was delivered this morning. Hyun looked uncomfortable. "I've already started the integration. It's nearly complete." Jaya wanted to argue, but what was the point? Earth had maybe a year left before the last habitable zones failed. The Legacy Project might be humanity's only surviving legacy. Perhaps honesty was better than a sanitized version of their history. "Fine," she said. "Include it all." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of final checks and system tests. The transmission array on the surface had been built at tremendous cost, using materials salvaged from abandoned cities. It was aligned to broadcast their message in all directions, a bubble of information expanding outward at the speed of light. The main control room filled with the remaining project staff. 50 people, all that remained of the original 300. Some had died. Others had left to spend their final days with family in the safe zones. "Power status?" Jaya asked, standing before the main console. "Earth's last fusion plant is online," Hyun replied, checking his readings. "We've routed everything to the array." They shut down life support in 3 sectors to give us enough power. A sobering thought. People would die sooner so this message could be sent, but they would die anyway. Everyone would. Quantum compression status. Jaya continued. Complete, Hyun said. The entire package is ready for transmission. 3 exabytes of data compressed into a form that can be transmitted in a single burst. Jaya looked around the room, at the faces of her colleagues, the last scientists of Earth working on humanity's final project. Some were crying silently. Others stood tall, proud of what they had accomplished despite everything. This may be the last great thing humans ever do, Jaya said to them all. When we're gone, this message will continue, perhaps for millions of years, perhaps forever. If someone finds it, they'll know we existed. They'll know what we were. She turned to Hyun. Begin the countdown. On the main screen, numbers began ticking down from 60. The room fell silent. Jaya thought of her parents, long dead, her brother and his family in the Seoul underground. Would anyone remember their names? Would anyone remember Earth? 10 seconds, Hyun announced. Jaya's fingers hovered over the activation sequence. Would anyone ever hear them? Would anyone care that a species called humans once lived on a small blue planet? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She pressed the button. The lights dimmed as power surged to the array. On the screens, energy readings spiked. The entire facility trembled. Transmission commencing, Hyun said, his voice barely audible over the sound of straining machinery. Outside, on the ruined surface of Earth, the massive array glowed with power. It sent humanity's final message outward: art, science, history, philosophy, the mathematical pattern of human thought, and yes, even humanity's wars and weapons. Everything humans had been, encoded and launched into the endless dark. Transmission complete, Hyun finally said as the lights returned to normal. Jaya took a deep breath. It was done. Humanity had sent its voice into the void. Now all they could do was hope someone would hear it. No one in that room could have imagined what listening ears would make of their message, or what terror would follow when humanity's voice reached the stars. 87 years had passed since Earth sent its final message to the stars. The blue planet was now a distant memory, a story told to children who had never seen its oceans or breathed its air. Humanity survived in 2 places, the red dust of Mars and the icy tunnels of Europa. The Martian colony was not beautiful. Domed cities sprawled across the red landscape, connected by transport tubes that snaked through the dust. Most people lived their entire lives without seeing the actual surface. The air was too thin to breathe, the radiation too strong. But humans lived on, adapting as they always had. Astronomer Ta Kim sat alone in the observatory dome, the highest point in New Seoul colony. Unlike the crowded living quarters below, he had space here. The massive telescope array extended across the Martian surface outside, while inside, screens covered the walls of his circular workroom. Ta had been watching the stars for 20 years. His job was simple: listen for signals, map cosmic events, track asteroids that might threaten the colony. Boring work, mostly, until today. The first signal came just after midnight, colony time. Ta almost missed it. A strange pattern repeating across 3 different frequency bands. Not from Earth, not from Europa, from somewhere much, much farther. He adjusted his instruments, checking for errors. There were none. The signals were real. Tai didn't wait until morning. He called Director Mina Cho immediately. "This better be important," Mina said when she arrived, still pulling on her uniform jacket. At 58, she had been born on Mars. Her parents had been among the first colonists who fled Earth before the final collapse. "It's happening across multiple frequencies," Ta told her, pointing to his main screen. "Look at these patterns." Mina leaned forward, suddenly wide awake. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the data scrolling across the screen. "These aren't random," she said slowly. "They're responses, Coordinated ones. From at least 7 different sources, Ta confirmed. All sending similar signal patterns, but not to us. To each other. Can you tell what they're saying? Minna asked. Ta shook his head. I'm an astronomer, not a linguist. But I can tell you this. These aren't natural signals. Something intelligent is making them. Minna straightened up. I need to call Europa. Their receivers are better than ours. Within days, confirmation came from the Europa outpost, humanity's furthest settlement nestled under the ice of Jupiter's moon. Their message was brief but shocking. Alien civilizations were communicating about something they called the human equation. The Europa team had detected something else too. Movement. Large objects shifting position among distant stars. Fleet movements, they suggested. Coming closer. In the days that followed, Minna assembled a small team to work on the problem. Their most valuable member was Subin Park, the colony's best linguist. While Subin had never encountered alien languages before, no human had, she had developed programs to detect patterns in unknown communication systems. Subin worked in a small lab just off the main observatory. She rarely left, sleeping on a cot in the corner. Food trays piled up by her desk. No one disturbed her. They all understood what was at stake. The Mars Council met daily now, trying to prepare for what might come. Some suggested building weapons, though Mars had few resources for war. Others thought they should try to communicate, to explain themselves. But how could they when they didn't understand the signals they were receiving? A week passed. Then, too, the distant movement continued. Whatever was coming was still years away at normal travel speeds, but it was definitely coming. Then, on the 18th day, Subin's door opened. Tai and Minna were in the observatory when she emerged. Her face was pale. Her hands shook slightly. I figured it out, she said. Her voice was rough from lack of use. Not everything, but enough. Minna guided Subin to a chair. What did you find? The signals contain references to the Earth message. Subin explained, over and over. They're discussing it. The Legacy Project message. Tai asked. After all this time. Subin nodded. It's been traveling outward for nearly 90 years. It would have reached many star systems by now. What are they saying about it? Minna pressed. Subin looked down at her tablet. They're afraid of us, she whispered. The message we sent decades ago. They think we're dangerous. They're coming to contain what they call the human contagion. The room fell silent. Taz's mind raced. Fear of humans. Their colonies were tiny, struggling places. How could anyone fear them? Why? Minna finally asked. What in the message frightened them? 2 things, Subin said. First, our history. The wars, the weapons, the Earth's destruction. But that's not the main thing. What is? Tai asked. The mathematical patterns, Subin explained. The encoding of human thought that was included. Something about how our minds work terrifies them. They keep referring to human thought patterns as aggressive, unpredictable, and contagious. Minna stood and walked to the window. Beyond the glass dome, the red Martian landscape stretched to the horizon, a barren world that humans had still managed to inhabit. How many? She asked quietly. At least 7 distinct civilizations, all communicating about us, Subin replied. And they're forming what translates roughly as a containment coalition. Tai felt cold despite the room's warmth. Containment. They think we're dangerous, Subin said again. They think our way of thinking could spread, could change them, and they're coming to stop us before it can happen. Minna turned from the window. How much time do we have? Subin looked at her notes. Based on the movement patterns from Europa's sensors, maybe 3 years. Maybe less if they can travel faster than we think. 3 years, Minna repeated. She straightened her shoulders. Then we have work to do. As the 3 of them sat in the quiet observatory, the stars outside seemed suddenly cold and threatening. Humanity had sent its voice into the darkness, hoping to be remembered. Now something had heard them, and it was coming. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the Mars colony as sirens wailed. People rushed through the underground tunnels, faces tight with worry. News had spread quickly. Something was coming from the stars, and it wasn't friendly. Governor Jin Kang sat at the head of the long metal table in the emergency council chamber. At 53, Jin had never seen Earth. He was born on Mars, like most colonists now. His short black hair was streaked with gray, his face lined from years of dealing with Mars colony's constant survival challenges. Around the table sat 12 people, the leaders of Mars colony's different sections. Some looked afraid, others angry. All waited for Jin to speak. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Jin began. He tapped a button, and the large screen behind him lit up with star maps. "As you've heard, we face a new threat. Director Mina Cho will explain." Mina stood, her face grim. 3 weeks ago, our observatory detected unusual signals. After analysis, we confirmed they are from multiple alien civilizations discussing Earth's final message, the one sent 87 years ago. Surprised murmurs filled the room. Most colonists knew about Earth's last transmission, but few thought anything would come of it. "Reports confirm multiple species have formed a coalition against us," Jin continued when the room quieted. "Their technology far exceeds ours. They have ships that can travel between stars. We have barely managed to build settlements on Mars and Europa." Defense Director Jun Park leaned forward. Unlike most Mars-born colonists, Jun was tall and broad-shouldered, the result of special exercises developed to counter Mars' low gravity. "Why are they so afraid?" he asked. "We're barely surviving on 2 moons and a hostile planet. We're no threat to anyone." Subin Park, the linguist who had decoded the alien signals, stood up. Dark circles under her eyes showed how little she had slept in recent weeks. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the main display. Jin nodded, and Subin activated the holographic display in the center of the table. A complex pattern of lights appeared, twisting and turning like a living thing. "This is a visual representation of the mathematical encoding of human thought patterns sent in Earth's message," she explained. "The Legacy Project didn't just send our art and science. They sent how we think." The pattern pulsed and shifted, never settling. "And this," Subin continued, bringing up a second pattern, "is what we believe represents alien thought patterns based on their communications." The second pattern was different, more orderly, more stable. It changed, but slowly and predictably. "It's our thought patterns. The mathematical encoding in the original message revealed our competitive evolution. Most sentient species evolve through cooperation. Our ability to adapt through conflict, it terrifies them." The room fell silent as everyone stared at the 2 contrasting patterns. Food Director Han broke the silence. "I don't understand. We cooperate all the time. We couldn't survive on Mars without working together." "Yes," Subin agreed, "but we evolved through competition first. Our history shows it. Our minds show it. We can switch between competition and cooperation instantly. We see problems as challenges to overcome, not just situations to adapt to. That makes our thinking unpredictable, dangerous, at least to them." Jin stood, expression hardening. His hands pressed flat against the table as he leaned forward. "Then we prepare," he said, his voice steady. "Mining equipment becomes weapons. Atmospheric processors become shields. We show them exactly why humanity survived Earth's death." No one objected. No one suggested trying to talk to the aliens or surrendering. Humanity had nearly died once. They wouldn't go quietly a second time. The next 2 months passed in a flurry of activity. The colony, once focused solely on survival and slow expansion, now turned to defense. In the northern mines, workers converted massive drilling machines into weapons. Engineer team leader Du explained to Jin during an inspection. "The laser cutters can be redirected outward. We've increased their power tenfold. They won't cut through advanced alien material, probably, but they might surprise them." In the main dome, teams worked day and night to strengthen the colony's shields. The atmospheric processors that had been slowly creating breathable air outside were reconfigured to generate energy shields instead. Progress toward terraforming Mars stopped. Survival came first. On Europa, similar preparations took place. Daily communications between the colonies increased. Humanity stood together, though separated by millions of kilometers of space. Jin rarely slept now. Each night, he walked through the colony tunnels, checking on progress, talking with colonists, trying to keep fears in check. The faces he saw showed worry but also determination. Humans had always been good at fighting against the odds. One evening, Jin found Subin still working in her lab. She had lost weight, her clothes hanging loose on her thin frame. "Any updates?" he asked. Subin looked up from her screens. "They're arguing among themselves," she said. "Some want to destroy us completely. Others suggest studying us first. They're afraid our way of thinking might spread to their populations like a disease." "A disease?" Jin frowned. "They see our thought patterns as contagious. They evolved through steady cooperation. The idea that beings could evolve through competition scares them. It's like discovering a completely different way to exist." Jin considered this. "Can we use their fear? Make them afraid to attack?" Subin shook her head. "I don't think so. Their fear is driving them to eliminate the threat. Bus, not run from it." Before Jin could respond, alarms blared throughout the colony. The emergency communication system activated. "Governor to the observatory immediately," came Mina's voice. Jin ran, Subin following close behind. When they reached the observatory, Mina and Ta stood before the main screen, faces pale. "Long-range sensors just picked them up," Mina said without preamble, moving past Neptune's orbit. On the screen, tiny dots of light moved against the blackness of space. "Ships. Many ships." "How many?" Jin asked, his mouth dry. "At least 50 that we can detect," Tai answered. "Different sizes, different designs. Just as Subin said, multiple species working together." Jin stared at the screen. Humanity's meager defenses seemed suddenly childish in the face of what was coming. How could they fight beings who could cross between stars? "How long do we have?" he asked. "At their current speed," Mina said, 3 weeks until they reach Mars." Jin took a deep breath. "Then we have 3 weeks to get ready." Outside the observatory window, the red Martian landscape stretched empty and barren. Soon, it would become humanity's last battlefield. The massive alien fleet appeared in Mars orbit one morning without warning. One moment the red sky was empty, the next it filled with hundreds of ships of various shapes and sizes. Some were enormous, floating cities that made the Mars colony look tiny in comparison. Others were small and quick, darting between the larger vessels. From the observatory dome, Governor Jin Kang watched them through reinforced glass. His heart beat fast, but his face remained calm. Behind him, colony leaders waited in tense silence. "They could destroy us in seconds," Defense Director Jun Park said quietly. "Our weapons are nothing compared to ships that can travel between stars." Yet hours passed, and the alien fleet made no move to attack. They simply hung in the sky, watching. Monitoring equipment detected scans sweeping over the colony, but nothing more aggressive. By evening, the Colony Council gathered for an emergency briefing in the underground command center. Maps and sensor readings covered the screens around them. "They're hesitating," Joan noted, pointing to fleet movement patterns. "They've been in position for nearly 12 hours. Why haven't they attacked?" Jin turned to linguist Subin Park. Over the past weeks, she had continued studying the alien communications, learning more about how they thought. "They fear direct contact," Subin explained. "They think our thought patterns might be contagious. Their communications suggest they're debating what to do with us. Some want to destroy the colonies from orbit. Others want to study us first." "Study us?" asked Medical Director Yu. "Like animals. More like a dangerous virus," Subin replied. They evolve through steady cooperation. Their minds work in orderly, predictable ways. They see our competitive thinking, our ability to rapidly adapt through conflict, as a threat to their way of life. Jin considered this information. Can we use that fear? Make them hesitate longer? Perhaps, Subin said, but eventually they'll decide. And most of them want us gone. A young technician rushed into the room. Governor, they're broadcasting a signal directly to our communication array. It's a contact request. Jin straightened his uniform jacket, put it through to the main screen. The large screen at the front of the room flickered, then filled with an image that made everyone gasp. The alien commander looked like a tall crystal structure, semi-transparent and glowing from within with soft blue light. It had no recognizable face or limbs, just an elegant crystalline form that shifted slightly as it moved. I am Oram, a translated voice said, slightly delayed from the crystal's pulsing glow. Commander of the Containment Coalition, we have monitored your colonies on Mars and Europa. Jin stepped forward. I am Jin Kang, governor of Mars Colony. Why have you come to our system? The crystal structure shimmered. Your species sent a message long ago. It revealed thought patterns dangerous to galactic stability. We must contain the threat. We are not a threat, Jin insisted. We are survivors of a dying world, trying to live in peace. Your history shows otherwise, Oram replied. Your minds are unpredictable. You thrive on conflict where other sentient species seek harmony. Your thinking could spread, changing the balance of civilization. The conversation continued, tense but controlled. Jin tried to explain humanity's perspective, while Oram spoke of cosmic stability and protection. Neither seemed to convince the other. Then, without warning, alarms blared throughout the command center. Multiple ships breaking from the main fleet. The sensor operator shouted. They're powering weapons. On the screen, Oram's crystalline form flashed with purple light. Alarm, perhaps. This is not authorized. These air. The transmission cut off as explosions bloomed in space. Through the confusion, they realized what was happening. A group of ships from the alien fleet had broken away and were attacking not just the human colonies, but the main coalition vessels as well. Radical faction. Subin shouted over the chaos. Their communications mentioned extremists who wanted immediate action. Energy beams sliced down from space, cutting into Mars' surface miles from the colony. The ground shook. At the same time, the main screen showed coalition ships under attack from their own kind. In the command center, panic threatened to take hold, but not among the human leaders. June, activate our defense grid, Jin ordered calmly. Target only the attacking ships, not the main fleet. Subin, try to re-establish contact with Oram. You, prepare medical for casualties, Jin continued. Min, power up the emergency shelters. Everyone moved with quick efficiency, no questions asked. This was what humans did best, adapt to sudden danger. Jun rushed to the defense control station, rerouting power to the shields, charging the mining lasers, activating drone swarms. Within minutes, Mars Colony's makeshift defenses came online. The converted mining lasers couldn't match alien weapons, but they could confuse targeting systems. The atmospheric shield generators, never designed for combat, created irregular energy fields that deflected some of the incoming fire. Most importantly, Jun had prepared a surprise. Drones. Hundreds of small maintenance robots had been reprogrammed with unpredictable flight patterns. They swarmed from the colony, surrounding the attacking ships, interfering with their sensors. On Europa, without being told, the human colony there launched similar defenses. The two human settlements coordinated their efforts instinctively, creating a combined strategy. The coalition fleet, in contrast, seemed paralyzed by the unexpected betrayal. Their ships moved slowly, responding in predetermined ways that the attackers easily predicted. They don't know how to handle surprise, Subin realized. Their cooperative evolution didn't prepare them for betrayal from within. Jin made a quick decision. Send them our tactical data. Show them what we're seeing, how we're responding. Within moments, the tide began to turn. The main coalition fleet, using human tactical information, adjusted their approach. The attacking ships, faced with unpredictable human defenses, and newly adaptive coalition ships, began to retreat. An hour later, the battle was over. Several coalition ships had been damaged. Parts of Mars' surface were scarred with new craters. But both the human colonies and the main alien fleet had survived. In the command center, communications reopened. Orem's crystalline form appeared again on screen, its blue glow now tinged with green. Your assistance was unexpected, Orem said. Jin nodded. We defended ourselves and you at the same time. It seemed logical. Logical, yet not how we would have approached it, Orem replied. Your minds move differently. You see patterns we cannot. You adapt instantly where we would need generations. It is remarkable and concerning. Not concerning, Jin countered. Valuable. Today showed what our different ways of thinking can accomplish together. The crystal being seemed to consider this, its light shifting through various colors. Perhaps, Orem said finally, we have more to discuss. 3 weeks after the battle, a historic meeting took place on Callisto, one of Jupiter's moons. No human had ever set foot there before. The small human ship carried just 5 people. Governor Jin Kang, Defense Director Jun Park, linguist Su Bin Park, scientist Min Lee, and Dr. Yi Sun. Their ship looked tiny next to the massive alien vessels. The landing pad had been specially built by the coalition for this meeting. As the humans stepped out wearing their environmental suits, they saw 7 different types of alien beings waiting for them. Each species had sent representatives. Orem, the crystalline commander, glowed with soft blue light. Beside him stood beings of all shapes, some like tall plants with moving branches, others resembling clouds of colored gas contained in floating shells, and some that looked almost like giant insects with multiple limbs. Welcome to neutral ground, Orem's translated voice said. Here we will decide the future of our species. Inside the meeting dome, special environments had been created for each species. Some needed different air, others different gravity. The humans removed their helmets in their section, but kept their suits on. For 3 days they talked. The aliens explained their histories, how their civilizations had evolved through cooperation rather than competition. They described peaceful development spanning thousands of years without major conflicts. Jin listened carefully. On the 3rd day, he stood to address all representatives. We understand why our message frightened you, he began. Humans evolved through struggle. Our history is full of conflict, but that is only part of who we are. Jin activated a display showing scenes from Mars colony, people working together to build homes, grow food, raise children. We've always dreamed of peace, he continued. That contradiction defines us. We compete and cooperate. We fight and we make peace. This duality gives us strength. The alien representatives communicated among themselves, lights flashing, tendrils waving. Finally, Orem spoke. Your adaptability saved many coalition lives during the attack. This suggests potential value in your thought patterns, despite the risks. Jin saw his opening. Then I propose something new, integration. Not domination by either approach, but a sharing of strengths. The room fell silent. Even the translator devices seemed to pause. Humans would share our adaptability, our creative problem-solving, Jin explained. You would teach us cooperative evolution, sustainable harmony. Together, we could be more than either could be alone. A plant-like being called Elith waved its branches in what Subin recognized as alarm. The risk of contamination is worth taking, Jin interrupted. Look at what we accomplished together during the attack. Imagine what we could do facing the greater challenges of the galaxy. Debate continued for hours. Some alien representatives strongly opposed the idea. Others showed curiosity. Oram remained quiet, observing. Finally, the crystalline being glowed bright yellow, a color humans had not seen before. "We propose a test," Oram said, "a limited sharing of knowledge through controlled interfaces. If successful, we will consider broader integration." 1 month later, the first neural interface was tested in Mars Colony's main lab. Scientist Min Lee sat nervously as technicians attached sensors to his head. Across from him, Oram's crystalline form pulsed gently. "The connection will be indirect," Min explained to the watching council members. "Our thoughts translated through advanced algorithms, safe for both sides." When they activated the system, Min gasped. His eyes widened. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "So ordered, so connected." Oram's crystal structure vibrated slightly. "Fascinating. Chaotic yet patterned, like a storm with purpose." That first connection lasted only 5 minutes, but it changed everything. Within weeks, more interfaces were established. Humans experienced the deeply connected, harmonious thinking of the various alien species. The aliens experienced human creativity, adaptability, and intuitive leaps. The results amazed everyone. Human scientists, after connecting with alien minds, developed new technologies combining both approaches. Alien philosophers, influenced by human thinking, created new theories of existence that transformed their societies. 6 months after the first contact, Jin stood with Oram on the surface of Mars, watching a miracle unfold. Alien biotechnology, guided by human ingenuity, was transforming the red planet. Special plants, created through the combined knowledge of 3 species, spread across the surface, releasing oxygen, creating soil, changing the very nature of Mars. "Your people always wanted to make Mars like Earth," Oram observed. "Alone, it would have taken thousands of years." Jin nodded. "With your biotechnology and our adaptive approach, we'll see results in decades instead." Later that year, a new treaty was signed, not of peace between potential enemies, but of partnership between allies. The Stellar Concordat united 7 alien civilizations with humanity in a new type of relationship. Ships from the Concordat began visiting Earth, the abandoned homeworld humans had fled. Alien scientists worked alongside human teams to study the damaged planet. Together, they created solutions that neither could have imagined alone. 2 years passed. Then 3. The human colonies grew. With alien technology, they expanded faster than ever before. More importantly, they were no longer alone in the universe. They had found not just other life, but partners. In the 4th year, something unexpected happened. The alien biotechnology on Earth began working faster than predicted. Green patches appeared on the long-dead continents. Oceans began to clear of pollution. The atmosphere started to heal. Earth was coming back to life. On the 5th anniversary of first contact, a historic moment arrived. A small human colony was established on Earth for the first time in nearly a century. Built in what was once Korea, not far from where the original message had been sent, the new settlement included habitat zones for all 8 species of the Concordat. Governor Jin, now an old man, stood with Oram on a hill overlooking the new colony. Below them, humans worked alongside aliens, each contributing their unique abilities to the shared project. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when your fleet arrived to destroy us?" Jin asked. Oram's crystal form shimmered with what Jin had learned was amusement. "Never. We feared your differences would corrupt us. We did not understand they would complete us." That evening, the restored transmission array, rebuilt on its original site, powered up for the first time in decades. A new message, crafted jointly by humans and 7 alien species, broadcast outward to the stars. Unlike the desperate final testament of a dying species, this message spoke of cooperation and strength through diversity. It invited other civilizations to join the Concordat, to share in the blend of competitive adaptation and cooperative harmony that had created something entirely new. Earth, once abandoned, would become the center of the stellar Concordat, where the adaptability of humans would be the catalyst that united the stars. Jin watched the transmission begin, remembering the frightened people who had fled Earth long ago. "Not our end after all," he said softly. "Just a different kind of beginning."